Hey, how are we, people? I'm doing the mulling thing again. Mulling, right? Um, I've just seen that there's another Labour MP who is a woman who is being savagely attacked once again by people in the Labour Party, the lunatics in the Labour Party. Starmer said nothing, absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Right, why has he said nothing? He should have been out the gate, finding out who it was that was doing this and ejecting them from the party. But no, he's done nothing. Nothing. I absolutely despair of some of what I see. And that's one of those things that I'm despairing of at the moment. It's just one. From my perspective, most of you know I've got a number of hats, right, that I wear depending on what's going on, but it's rarely that I do these kind of mulling things because this is me having a mull. It's not the jester, right? It's me, and I'm very concerned. So I've been thinking about what is my position on things. Trying to have some clarity in my own mind about what is my position. So I thought it would be a good idea if I made a video of it so I could look at it tomorrow and then think about it and how I might write it and incorporate it into work I'm doing. I haven't decided yet whether I'm going to upload it for you. You have found out by now. So let's get some stuff. I want to clear some stuff up from in my mind, which is what I'm doing. So I'm primarily talking to me, not you. Okay. Gender identity doesn't exist. It never did exist. It is a made-up concept. The roots and history of which we must unpick and expose for the ridiculous notion it is. The people that have taken on board that ridiculous notion are no different to the Scopsy or any other cult that existed in the past. Indiana Jones, the word cult in it. But that's it. So I'm thinking that's it. Right, okay, that's where I am now, gender identity, right? The genital mutilation and bodily mutilation that comes along with the belief system of trans is a medical scandal on a par with nothing like we've seen since the day of eugenics. That's the second one. So gender identity doesn't exist. That this entire fiasco was perpetrated by men going back as far as you want. We'll go back, say, to the 1950s and 60s. I'm talking about Money, Stoller, Benjamin, Spack, these men. And then lubricated by the likes of the Beaumont Society and other fetishists and cross-dressers, homophobic fetishists and cross-dressers. And then inculcated from academia, which has led to the damage of thousands of children and young people worldwide. Gender identity doesn't exist. The very concept or notion of this kind of surgery is an abomination, and it must all end. Every last bit of it. Every last bit. That's it. All right? It's iatrogenic in harm to everyone. The provision of estrogen for men or testosterone for women for the purpose of a simulacrum building of a body that is not congruent with your sex is to be banned immediately. It stops today. We're not allowing fetishistic men in their 40s to grow titty skittles so that they can get off on it. Gender identity doesn't exist. The whole thing needs to be pulled down. Estrogen and testosterone should not be provided to people who want to adopt a simulacrum and then pretend that there's something they're not in society. The very concept or notion of having to pretend that somebody is something they are not in the workplace needs to end. To do that, we need to repeal the GRA and remove it from the Equality Act. That's the first sort of four things that came to my mind. The teaching of gender identity ideology in schools and the practicing of critical social justice in schools should cease immediately. And if they refuse to do guidelines, then we pass a law to do it. We get these people out. Right, okay, because they shouldn't be there. And they certainly shouldn't be talking to your children. From my perspective, as somebody who's involved in helping others to realise their voice, at no time and in no world that I know do we collaborate with people who are even vaguely close to this. The people who are most in need of attention medically are detransitioners, because it is them that have been harmed irreparably by these men. Okay? Harmed irreparably by these men who have encouraged, inculcated, and gaslit everybody else into supporting them. In a collaborative endeavour such as the one we all undertake, doing our own little bit here and our own little bit doing there, little bit there, which is what we do because it is a reactive collaboration, there is no place for fetishistic men who pretend they are something they are not and who attempt to ingratiate themselves. No place, not one of them. And whenever men find that these men are doing what these men are doing, which is infiltrating and gaslighting women most of the time, pretending that they're something they're not, smiling and smiling, though one still may be a villain. Their very presence, their very presentation is, from my perspective, therefore, when it's accepted, a capitulation to a portion of a cult belief system which we cannot allow to fester in our society. This is a cultural battle, and the sooner we get our head around that, I think, the better for all of us. This is not a political battle. Because if we do not defeat this culturally, and it drips down into politics, it will become more policy than it is now. And once it's policy, and then law, it's game over. We do not tolerate the presence, in my book, of any man or any woman who is pretending to be a simulacrum that is something they are not. No matter how kind, how nice, I don't want them anywhere. If they're in classrooms and they're making the kids call them she or he, if they're in classrooms and they're making the kids call them they or them, if they are in amongst groups that we already know we're collaborating with, or groups that are already doing good work and ingratiating themselves in some way, or running after school swim clubs for 11 to 25-year-olds, I don't care. I don't care who they are. They do not, in my mind, in my personal work, have any place in this at all. None. They need to sit down. And the men involved in this, and I'm talking to gay men now, you know you are, need to call these men out. They need to go away. This is nothing to do with them. If they want to practice their fetish, they can practice their fetish, but they can do it in their own damn bedroom. That way we can get it out of the public square, because their very representation, their image is an encouragement to iatrogenic harm by gay and lesbian children, by children generally, particularly those who have numerous problems. We know this, right? And also young people who get caught up in this cult. And it doesn't matter whether they're Munro bloody Bergdorf or, what's that stupid woman from Hollywood that took her breasts off? I can't remember her name, but you know what I mean. I don't, any of them whatsoever. Any of these people do not belong in our collaborative work, in my mind. Okay, only in my mind. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm saying this is what stance I'm taking. Okay, they do not belong. None of them, not one. Not one. We do not tolerate their presence because they will gaslight women and pretend that they're something they're not, as well as pretending they're something they're not, because that is the nature of the beast. It's abuse dynamics. You can see it all over the place. You can see it all over the show. I don't know how everybody misses it. I really don't. Right? The men, we need to call these men out and tell them they are not welcome. They should leave because they are the representation that will lead to the damage of other people in the future. None of this is any good. So there we go. Gender identity doesn't exist. The entire edifice needs to collapse. Surgery should not be available. Hormones should not be available. None of it should be available. And there should be no people, nobody, not one person who is offering any kind of therapy based on the idea that gender identity exists. It doesn't. That's the first exception from the client. The first thing the client has to do is go through the education, right back from the 50s right through to now, to find out how these perverts, right? And social constructionists and postmodern grievance gerbils, how these people have managed to get a lie like this so heavily into society as a top-down imposition, right? Because that's what it is, a top-down imposition. You don't sup with the enemy. And if you don't think this is a battle, then you are absolutely mad. Because this is a cultural battle, and what subsequently happens afterwards will be a direct result of how successively we eradicate the entire concept from our cultural milieu. This is not a let's get together and clasp hands across the table moment. There is no way on God's earth I'm going to sit down and sing Kumbaya with these ridiculous men and women. Whether you do is for you to choose, but it'll be history that judges you, not me. It may well be time for me to get my house in order and ensure that's where I am. And maybe it's time for you to consider whether you should too. As always, with love, I'll see you soon.